Welcome to the Quintessential Listening Poetry Online Radio and YouTube Podcast, streamed live from the heart of Washington, D.C. Here, you'll find a portal to vibrant voices, echoing souls, and an ongoing celebration of the extraordinary power of language. So, prepare yourself to join host Dr. Michael Anthony Ingram and his special guests as they explore traditional and spoken word forms of poetry.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Teresa E. Gallion is a renowned poet and author, and she will grace us tonight with her presence as well as sharing insights and captivating poetry from her latest book, Come Egypt. Welcome, Teresa, to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you.
Let's begin this poetic journey. Teresa, what inspired the creation of this poetry collection?
What happened was I went on a 2-week trip to Egypt back in May of 2022. I had always wanted to go to Egypt, of course, and I finally got there in 2020. And I didn't know that seeing the tombs and temples from ancient Egypt would have such a large impact on me. And so I started writing immediately when I was there. And I didn't finish a whole lot of stuff, but I was just so excited about walking in and out of the various temples and tombs, and I felt like I had been there before. And that's because I do believe in past lives and regression. And I was feeling the intensity of all of the spaces that I was visiting. So when I would walk into a tomb, I would feel the intensity of past lives that had been there. But I was also impressed with nature, as I am always, the fact that nature had preserved these eloquent pieces of work, artistic work, I call them, and preserved them so well in the sand. But anyway, so I started writing. It was not originally with the intent of producing a book. I was just writing. But what happened, because I kept writing over and over again, what eventually happened was I thought, I probably need to do a book. Because I was working on another book, but I got distracted into this. For the past 2 years, most of the time, I've been thinking about Egypt, even when I'm not in Egypt, when I'm in New Mexico, sitting by the river, when I'm sitting by the river in Colorado, when I'm traveling, I was thinking about Egypt. I would write. I would be back and forth in my waking dreams, thinking about Egypt. And all of that led to the actual production of this book, which now that I look in retrospect, I'm glad that I did it. And I also believe that I was supposed to do it because I believe that we do things that we're supposed to do in life. That was basically the reason.
I need to ask, that feeling of being there before, when did you notice something happening inside you, inside your spirit, that you had been there before?
I don't remember exactly when, but I'm thinking that it hit me hardest when, and I don't remember which day we went now because we're talking 2 years ago, but it probably hit me the hardest when we went to the Valley of the Kings. And the Valley of the Kings is where the pharaohs' tombs are, where they were buried. Okay, in the Valley of the Kings, it was pretty much all pharaohs, and of course, all of their staff that was buried with them. And it was stepping into those tombs because, believe it or not, I'm claustrophobic, but I wasn't feeling that claustrophobia when I would walk into these tombs because they're so huge. And you walk in, and they've built them in such a way that you like walking down stairways down into the earth. And all of a sudden you're seeing all of this magnificent beauty, the hieroglyphics and the paintings on the walls on both sides. And I could just feel that intensity, and so intense. And particularly, I do remember in the tomb of Ramesses III, when I went in that temple and I decided that, I was connected somehow to Ramesses III because that one hit me harder than any of the others. I felt that intensity going into the others, but much, much more so going into that. And don't ask me to remember which day. I don't remember which day of the two it was. It certainly wasn't the first or the last day. We're somewhere in between.
I understand. Thank you. The title of your book, Come Egypt, there was something about it that drew me in. There was a sense of welcoming. Tell me more about the title.
It's interesting how that happened. One of the things that experiences I had in my 2-week tour of Egypt was 5 nights on an Egyptian yacht. Okay. I had no idea I would enjoy that so much. I would go back to Egypt just to spend 5 nights on that yacht again. But when I was on the yacht, I wrote several verses of that poem, Come Egypt, but I wasn't calling it Come Egypt at the time. But I wrote several verses. And when I got back home, I set it aside for a long time. I didn't come back to it for, I think, almost a year. And then one day I was sitting by the river in Colorado because I go to Colorado every year and I camp. And I love camping by the river in Colorado. It's absolutely beautiful. And all of a sudden I started writing that again. And what I started doing was I was writing the verses, and at the end of each verse, I started saying, Come Egypt, come home. And I thought, that's what the name of the book is going to be. It's just like that. So really decided while I was sitting on the Arkansas River, which I need to get back to.
It's the perfect title. Tell me more about the cover. How was the cover created? What drew you to that particular design?
Okay, I had an idea in my head. I knew what I wanted, okay? For one thing, I wanted to have an ancient temple, okay, represented as part of the background. And I also wanted a female who represented a queen of Egypt from that particular time period so that she would have on the period headpiece, which she does, and the period gear, jewelry, and all that stuff. And I was having trouble finding what I wanted. And of all things, like my dear friend Mary December had been working on her book, Wild Conviction, and she came up with this cover that's absolutely magnificent. I don't know if you've seen it, but she has an absolutely magnificent cover for her book. And when I asked her who did it, she told me and suggested that I could possibly try this person. And I did, and I'm so glad I did. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, Nerbheek or something like that, but it's on a platform called Fiverr.
Yes.
And so it's, okay, yeah, she introduced me to Fiverr, and I decided to approach Nerbheek. And I worked with him for 2 weeks, in which had the language issues because English was not his first language, but still he spoke it quite fluently, okay? And we would go back and forth on the emails at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. And I was thinking, oh, we're going to get there. And then finally he came up with a version that I liked. I got all excited at 4 a.m. in the morning. And within an hour or two, because then it was I forget, there was a big difference in the time thing. He was back at it with me and tweaking it, doing things I had asked him to do. And it just kept getting better and better. And I finally said to him, I like this. We're done. So I'm so happy with the cover. It's the first cover that I've had that I really just say I love. And I have to attribute the fact that I ended up with the cover to Mary December.
Teresa, I would love to hear some of your poetry.
Okay. Since you're having me read so much, I'm going to read in sections. And I'm going to start with the first section, which is moment. One of the things I've learned to do during the month of April, because I've been reading a lot this month. I don't normally read so much, but I have read quite a few times out of this month. So I'm all over the place reading. And the last reading that I did, I took the time because I had been asked to do that, to give background information on my poetry, because I don't normally do that. So I've been making the effort to spend a little more time doing it. So I thought I'd share with you some background information on some of the pieces in the actual sections. Forward for my book. And she captured the essence of the 4 sections, which I thought was how amazing of my book. When somebody asked me about it, I said, read the foreword. I'm not going to tell you. But yeah, she did quite a cool job of doing that. And anyway, the first section is called Captured Moments. And what I noticed is that I didn't write these all at one time, but at various times over the years, I would be thinking about something that happened when I was on the trip. And it was a given moment. And so I call them captured moments because it captured me at that moment. And one of the things where I had a bunch of captured moments was when I was riding on that Egyptian yacht. That was, oh my God. Did I die and go to heaven? So wonderful. And the first piece I'm going to read is called Egyptian Yacht. And I wrote that the first morning when we got up and we came up the stairs from our rooms, sitting on the outside deck having Turkish coffee. I love Turkish coffee because it's so strong. and I wrote this piece. And I pretty much wrote it while I was sitting there having my coffee that morning. I think I later tweaked it. But it's called Egyptian Yacht. Peace flows over me like a soothing melody. My heart expands and love floods my bones. Ecstasy makes me float like a goddess. I cannot pull the words from my mouth to capture the feelings invading my brain. Perhaps silence is the best response as I gaze at morning's light streaking across the Nile River. We float on an Egyptian yacht. The Aida is forever imprinted on our hearts. It gently carries us on this majestic river. We are all at peace, savoring the magic in the quiet float on a powerful waterway that transports the weight of humanity downstream. The inner pictures of my soul are not ready to release. They tease me with no mercy. I yield and bend my knees on the sacred deck in praise of this river. Living in the moment is the key. I savor the endless love flowing through this morning and hold my robust coffee close to the chest. And the next piece is called Brief Exposure. And I wrote this piece when I was in my room. Our rooms were a nice size for yachts, and we had large side windows where we could really see out and up. And I was watching evening fold on the river as I was laying there before I went to sleep. And it was just absolutely the peace and the solitude of that. Because even with all the hustle and bustle all during the day, extremely quiet on the river at night. Okay. So I wrote Brief Exposure, sitting in bed. The edge of evening is the last exhale of the sun on the horizon. Orange cream lays across the mountain peaks. My eyes slant upward to gaze at natural light. Illusions of fire and ice waver in the twilight. A frost-bitten wind staggers to sleep. The stars slowly roll out on black velvet. Happy yawns open wide, and my eyes rolled in slumber. And the third piece I'm going to read in this section called Captured Moment is, again, was a beautiful moment captured. We were on our way to the camel auction early in the morning, riding on the back of a truck with makeshift benches. Anyway, we got to the camel market, and there were kids there. They were just the beautifulest kids, and they were staring at us, and we were staring at them because we were like invaders of their home, so to speak. But there was this one little boy that when the camel auction was over, he decided to follow us on his donkey. And he rode his donkey behind the truck all the way back. And he yelled out things in his language, which we didn't know what he was saying, but we kept waving and throwing kisses to him. He was so cute. He was so cute. And I will always remember him because of that. And so I wrote this piece. This is just for him. It's called Egyptian Moment. Some young 21st century Egyptian lad greets us at the camel auction, stares with an amused smile at the alien invasion of his land of birth. We wave and wink at young innocence as our auction experience ends with the sale of many camels. He chases us on his donkey as we bounce on a truck bed with makeshift seats down the dusty road, waving in front of his angelic smile. What will you be, pretty brown boy? What will you be when you become a man? Thank you.
In terms of the selection process, how did you choose those poems to go into that section? What about those pieces brought the section to life?
Like I was saying earlier, it was a moment, an experience. And you could call it at that point that I had it, it was a present moment experience, okay? And it was an experience that kind of lifted my spirits and made me feel good, feel blessed, and all those other good things you can think of. I was feeling really good about whatever I wrote about in that particular moment. Like I was just saying, it's a very simple piece about the little boy, but it was just a wonderful experience to interact with him to the way that we did in that moment on our way back to the yacht. And so it was having an experience, and each piece, something happened, like sitting up in bed and watching the sun begin to set and realize where I am was an amazing moment. Who would have thought at my age, when I was a little kid swinging from a pecan tree, that I would be sitting here on an Egyptian yacht watching sunset and on the ancient Nile River of all places. That's what I mean by captured moments. And as Mary put some magic moments, you got to read that forward.
Please share some more of your work.
Okay. I'll read a few pieces from the second section. It's called Shape-Shifting Between Time and Space. This is where I was going back and forth. I would be in Egypt writing about New Mexico. I'd be in New Mexico writing about Egypt. Or I'd be daydreaming back and forth about wherever. And I did a lot of that, especially when I got back. Because one of the first things I always like to do when I've been on a trip abroad is I try to get to the mountains because that's extremely important to me. And the piece I'm going to read is called Reserve Space. And I wrote this again. I wrote this one sitting on the Arkansas River. There's a place I camp on Arkansas that I absolutely just love. And when I got back from Egypt that year, I did go camping about a month and a half later on Arkansas. And it was just, the weather was so cooperative, and it was absolutely spectacular. Anyway, I wrote this piece while I was sitting, having my coffee in the morning. That's usually when I'll write in the morning. I don't generally write in the evening for some reason, when I'm traveling. And I think it's because I'm taking it slow and easily. That's normally when I would do my walking meditations and things like that in the morning. So anyway, I wrote this in a 20 piece sitting by Arkansas, and it was an absolutely spectacular morning. It's called Reserve Space. The back end of the axe beats stakes into the ground to hold my tent in place next to the river. Still, it is not secure. The wind may take it away. I do not want to be held in place like this tent. I want to swim deep and rise like a phoenix, reborn as goddess of this river, singing in the choir of its flow. I feel the heaviness of 1,000 years dragging me in my contemplative state. I move forward by divine grace on the Nile River and flood the landscape to renew the earth. Now I float in the Arkansas River that gives pleasure to ungrateful humans. For a moment, I still feel the blue now massaging all of my senses. I throw a kiss of gratitude at two rivers and hold space in my heart. I inhale the vigorous flow of the Arkansas River and feel the now running through my veins. And the next piece is called Against the Sun. Every time I hug a tree, I know the hug of spirit. I hold tight for a while just to feel that energy. I whisper into the bark, thank you. My ears hear, you're welcome. Go share your love. And I think of you floating down the Nile, holding my hand. I catch my breath one moment and you are gone. I walk back into the present and your blue-green eyes say, not ready. A teardrop rolls down your face. You are still frozen in that past life when we fought against the sun. And the third piece, I read this one every time I read just because I like reading this poem. Because it was taking me on quite a ride when I wrote it. And I wrote it in pieces between Egypt and New Mexico. The river still flows. My walking meditation draws me to the spirit of the Rio Grande, soothing in the morning light. I feel regal after the benediction of an Egyptian massage. No words to adequately describe the ancient whole of energy of temple ruins and tombs, unearthed in all their glory. She's my many lifetimes sitting here beside the river. I am remarkably blessed here in the bosque with a wave of New Mexico love light surrounding me. I gaze the eloquence of delightful cottonwood as it sings in green lyrics all around the river and me. I could shout my gratitude over and over again, and that would not be sufficient to express my joy. To be home in my beloved New Mexico, reflecting on my journey. I touch the Rio Grande, step out of my body into the Nile River. I feel the weight of 4,000 years speak to me in tongues I can understand when it tells me I am still here. Mankind may pollute and abuse me, cause a temporary flu, but cannot destroy me. I will be here when all the pathetic souls of earth leave the planet, for I am eternal. I am the key of life. I am the fluid of life. I am the goddess of energy. I will survive another 4,000 years. I will still be here. My soul feels the cold vigor of those years, making me tremble in the magnitude of those words. It is the power of earth to tell this story in generational waves as we repeat the cycles of life and death, and the river still flows. Coming back to my body, I sit by the Rio Grande, run my fingers across the water, feel the connection between the Nile River and the Rio Grande in the essence of a river's flow. Thank you.
Teresa, organizing a collection can be a very daunting process. Did your muse assist you in the organization of these different sections? Tell me more about process of organization.
know if my muse assisted me, but for some reason, when I pulled all of the pieces together, because I had them scattered about, because remember, I've been writing over 2 years, and I pulled the pieces together and put them in one place and then laid them out on the floor. That's what I tend to do. I lay them out on the floor. They fell in place in this particular book. That doesn't usually happen. You're right. It's usually a struggle, because I remember when I did Chase It, and like, oh my God, which is a much larger book. It took me weeks to figure that one out. And then I went and asked my editor, Debbie Brody, who's always helped me with editing. I said, please help me organize these poems. I'm losing it. But for Come Egypt, it fell into place, and it fell into sections. Actually, now that I think about it, I had sections written down because I had certain poems in my head that fit. And once I started placing poems according to that section in 20, they was falling in nicely. And then I had 2 or 3 that weren't perfectly in, but that's okay. But they started falling into place. And so I'm like, yeah, I like this. This time, I think that this book was supposed to be for me, because I'm very happy with it, that I was supposed to come out with it, because I really didn't struggle with it in any of those normal ways that you would struggle with things at times. I didn't struggle with this at all. And I did do a lot of tweaking, but not major rewriting of most of the pieces that are in this book. I probably should have done some rewriting, a lot more rewriting, but I didn't. But I, of course, tweaked a lot. But I don't know, it just fell into place. And I'm grateful to Spirit for that.
Please share with me the titles of 5 poems in the book.
Come Egypt, of course. Reserve Space. Words to Love You. Never Alone Again. Redemption. My Womb.
Thank you. The reason I asked for the titles, tell me about titling poems. What's that process like for you? In other words, how do you know that the title is the title?
Okay. That's getting into a whole nother arena. I assign titles after I started the poem or after I've written it and tweaked it for a while. Because normally I don't even worry about titles when I first start. Occasionally, the title starts the poem, okay? So I'm all over the place there. There's no rhyme or reason or logic with me on the title thing. Sometimes I have a title, and then from that title, I end up writing a poem. Sometimes I write a poem, and a title just comes. It just comes out of nowhere. I'm not looking for titles. I don't sweat over it. And then sometimes I have a poem and I have absolutely no title, and I'll pull a word, a line, a phrase from the poem itself. Because I'm not one to worry about struggling with titles. A lot of people don't do titles, but I have a personal bias there. I prefer to have titles to poems, but that's just me. Because if a person doesn't have a title, then the first line of their poem is going to be the title for me when I'm reading their work. For me personally, again, I wouldn't speak for anyone else. I prefer to have a title that I can reference back to know which poem I want to go to without having to remember the whole first line of poems. Because I had to do that for my quatrains, because my quatrains did not have titles. And so the first line in each quatrain, sometimes I'm, okay, which one is that? The first line of the quatrain, as my memory begins to fade and fade. But for some reason, when I hear the title, I remember which poem it is. Okay. So I don't have a defined process. Let's put it this way. Sometimes there is order and chaos. So in that respect, it falls into place eventually.
Please share some more of your work.
Section 3 is called Musings on the Nile. This section doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Egypt per se, but just what I was feeling in that moment when I was writing on the deck of the Aida. Okay, because most of these pieces were started, most of them not finished until much later. Because again, like I said, I usually would write a few lines, even if it was only 3 or 4 lines. That was the start of a piece. And I would start, and it was whatever I was thinking about in that moment, whoever I was thinking about in that moment, and what impact thinking about that thing or that individual had on me floating down an aisle that morning. The first piece is called, and so it ends up being some love poems. Scream into the silence. Entwined in the sound of your voice, I am trapped. I hug a tree for life and try not to drown in your hold. My body tries to take leave of you. My mind and soul do not want to let go. I breathe out and flowers bloom around me. You ambush me with the sound floating from your tongue. A soothing speakeasy manipulates my senses. Your cold tracks linger in my brain. Word slayer, songs of remembering play in my head. I run through the catacombs of time. You flirt ahead just far enough to keep me chasing your light. Lifetime after lifetime. Thoughts of you become a benediction, and winter feels long in the desert as you dance in the sand against a blue nautical sky. My heart skips a beat with each breath. I scream into the silence. And the next piece is called Lyrical Release. Sacred syllables ride up my spine, create a flesh flood in my brain. Raging ripples spit wild words. I want to catch and release soft words of wisdom, ride sea waves, float down rivers, climb mountains, and see the world as a lake of goodness. I want to mute all voices and massage faces with lyrical phrases that move mountains to shiver, grass to sway, and open meadows, rocks to slide down hillsides. When the sound current of love slaps me in the face, may my arms open and receive sacred lyrics. And the next piece is called Never Alone Again. I come from the womb of love, open to embrace a soaring heart riding on wind-battered time. The sacred dead rest beneath sand and rub my eyes on bygone ages. I am drunk on ancient water rolling over my breast. My bones are the temple of love that rose from the pure elixir of the Nile. I bathe in sacred water and wait for you to write hieroglyphics of love on the walls of my body and massage my bloodstream. I want to join my flow to yours, forever float in the essence of pure light. Never leave me alone again. And the last piece in that section is called Redemption. Take your eyes to the tears laundry. Wash them well. Go back on deck, see the world in a new light. Blood streams down your face. I want to touch you, but no, I cannot expose what is forbidden. You are an image of me and the window of my past lives floating down the Nile. The marriage of water and light pulls me close to the river. I want to touch purity in that union, but cannot bear to embrace it. The memory is too painful. Perhaps next time, when the scar feels less tender. My desires stand in shadows, stoking fires burning inside me, working to expand my fears. Now I understand the gift of stubbornness. I shall not be ruled by fear. Brightest of the river smiles as we ride currents celebrating my insight. Thank you.
Teresa, are you hoping Come Egypt resonates with a broad range of readers, or are you attempting to target a specific audience with your work?
To be honest, normally I don't care, okay? But let me back up after saying that. I've gotten involved with some youth. I call them youngins because if they're 50 to 40, they're youngins to me. Over the past 6 months or so, and with my book coming out, I was curious to see how they would receive it, okay? Because they're at a different point in their lives. Many of them are still what I call writing down the pain, okay? I did that years ago too. Lost, hurt, and a lot of violence. And particularly the young women, so many of them have experienced abuse. And that kind of pulls at the heartstring. But so they're writing about that type of stuff. And so I'm coming in here from the outside as an older person, and I'm reading to them. And actually, a lot of them are receiving it quite well. And I'm like, wow, because they're young and they don't have to send me notes or send me private notes saying, I like this piece or I like that. I like you said it. So I thought, this is pretty good. So I've decided that that I want to continue to try to appeal to that younger audience. I generally haven't done it because normally I'm not reading to a younger audience. I'm reading to my own age peers. I joined Instagram because of these kids, and I'm calling them kids. They're grown. I realize that. But for me, if I'm 74 and you 40, that kids. Sorry. Anyway, they're amazing, and some of them are amazing little poets. They're really good. Some of them I almost want to cry for because some of the stuff they're writing is so painful. Yes. So I thought this would be a different angle to bring in to them. Let them hear something different because they're reading to the choir, so to speak. And I'm reading as an outside choir member. I'm still liking it. And as long as it pleases me, I will continue to do it.
As you think about potential readers, is there any advice you would give to them before they delve into this book?
I'm sharing a lot more than I normally do by speaking to you about how some of these poems evolved. I don't normally do that, period. I just read normally. Mm-hmm. Because it drives me insane when people spend 5 minutes talking about a poem and read a 30-second poem. But like I told you, I've been reading the whole month here, and I've been practicing giving a little background information on the poems that I'm reading. So doing that, I don't really feel the need to give them any insight or whatever. I prefer them to receive the poem. I really do strongly believe in that. I prefer them to receive the poem at the level they're ready to receive it. And if it touches them, that's good. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. I'm not one of these people who are so caught up in their own work or their ego that they feel the need for everybody to like their work. I don't have that need. I just don't. Now, that being said, I do hope that there are a few people out there that do like the work, so don't get me wrong. But I don't have a need for, if it's 100 people, I don't have a need for the 100 to like. If I just have 15 or 20, I perfectly happy. Because to me, that's much more meaningful anyway. The other thing that's extremely meaningful too, especially that's why I have liked reading to the youngsters, because they didn't have to approach me. You know what I'm saying? Yes. They didn't have to come up. They're not coming up there. We're online. I'm online reading. All of this is online. They don't have to send you messages saying, I really like your piece. And not only that, several of them have actually purchased the book. Now that means they really liked it, okay? So that's a powerful statement, because out of nowhere, I've had several youngins buy my book. And I'm like, wow, I really appreciate that. And I'm grateful. So it's, in that respect, it's been a good experience. I may have to move away from the older folks.
We're almost at the end of this poetic journey, but would you please share some more of your work before we close?
All right. Okay. I got you covered. I got you covered. Okay. I'm going to read a couple from the last section, which is called Temple Hopping and Tomb Walking. And then I'm going to close with the title piece. Goddess Isis speaks. I have taken you in every way a goddess can. The fruit of my labor bursts between my legs. Feminine power bleeds down my thighs. You are caught in the awe of my power. I suckle you at will until my thirst is quenched. When I lay you gently upon earth and tell my story of conqueror on the walls with the art of my pen, one day I will return to this temple. Behold the beauty of the goddess hands that scrolled on these walls. I will stroll across the temple walls in wondering awe. Who bequeath this beauty risen from the sea? The other piece is called Behold Me. And this is about Ramesses III. This is the one that had a major impact on me when I entered his tomb. A nightingale sits on the foot of Ramesses III. He stares beyond my physical body. No outward sound comes from his throat. Yet I feel the engaging, deep lyrics within. It is a welcome song to enter the tomb. I feel an empathetic body lean against my light body with the scent of love rolling from eyes that see through me. What is the message for me as I enter this tomb greeted with, hello? My spiritual wings open and light flows through me. The intensity of the message floats across the tomb's wall. Welcome, dearly beloved. How has your journey progressed the last 3,000 years? Let's talk. I want to behold your magnificent spirit shining through. And then I'll close with the title piece, and that's Come Egypt. Come Egypt. All my dreams spill over the waterfall. I watch the blossoms stream down. I see the tombs of gods, goddesses, and pharaohs beckoning my soul to come home. I hear singing in the wind. Come Egypt, come home. I left no trace of the last trail I took before translation. Here I stand today with flutters in my ears. Come Egypt, come home. I tiptoe in the Egyptian desert, gently rest my boots on the ground, bow my head with respect and awe to the wondrous carvings from the sand calling my name. Come Egypt, come home. I am a goddess with angel wings, shaking sand off my feathers as I rise, licking the sand from my hands. Time is calling. Come Egypt, come home. I have trekked around the sun 4,000 times plus one, and I hear a voice messaging my soul. Come Egypt, come home. Nubians dance with an urgency that grabs my attention. Drums of harmony play a homecoming ritual in my name, shouting out loud. Come Egypt, come home. I walk in the tomb of Ramesses III, in the hieroglyphics pull at my heart. Resistance is not an option when the stimulus is so strong. Come, Egypt, come home. Your mummy is no longer usable. It crumbles in the atmosphere. You must embrace a new body to bind your soul. Come, Egypt, come home. Cloud clusters crying my name flow into my river of radiance. Drenched in your tears, my heart melts in a wave of love. Come, Egypt, come home. The river sings an ode to joy through the millennia. Here we stand on the deck of an Egyptian yacht listening. Come, Egypt, come home. Inhale the wind of the morning river, fold arms around the warmth of hoodies. The morning chill calls the morning brew to assist the sunrise and sun. Come, Egypt, come home. Gratitude floats on the deck of Aida for the blessing of this ancient experience. Solitude opens its wings to first light and the delight of the river's flow. The sound current streams. Come, Egypt, come home. The first sighting of morning, a water buffalo stands at the edge of the river, staring, slowly chewing its morning mulch. I can feel the sun in its heart. Come, Egypt, come home. Rose petals etched with the names of beloveds rise from the sand. I cannot get you out of my dreams, walking meditations along the Nile River, vibrations in the breeze enfold me. Come, Egypt, come home. When evening bends the light rays across the river, the water whispers just beneath the surface. Come, Egypt, come home. The river's musical surge makes me breathe deep in my soul. My ears twinkle like stars, overflowing with energy. I hear, come, Egypt, come home. I bow in reverence at the water's edge. A blanket of earth supports this river as it stumbles over words to spell grace. Come, Egypt, come home. A colored girl's muse rises from its ashes, flies above the river, and speaks in the tongue of the goddess. Come, Egypt, come home. She opens her mouth wide. The breakfast of her tongue sings without resistance. Come, Egypt, come home. Your legs tremble under the weight of your visions. Your heart is in overdrive. Someone, please take my hand. Come, Egypt, come home. How can this be such a powerful plea after 4,000 plus years? I know not the voice singing for me, but I feel the purity and innocence of the call from the temple walls. King Egypt, come home. Which one of you standing here with me, stain these temple walls with life colors? Hear the call like a prayer. Come, Egypt, come home. Come, Egypt, come home. Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Come, Egypt is my favorite Teresa E. Gallion poem. It's epic. So, on the basis of your creative journey with this book, what personal discoveries have you made about yourself?
I guess this discovery I made is that I can actually write a book, a complete book from something that hits me very powerfully. Because it never occurred to me when I started out visiting Egypt, which was very important, and I loved it, that I would end up with a book published about Egypt, of all places, even though it was absolutely amazing experience. That's what I learned, I think. I'm always learning stuff about myself because I'm always growing and developing and opening spiritually, but that's right off the top of my head. That's what it would be in terms of the book. I would like to say this in closing. I have been living Egypt for the past 2 weeks. I'm involved in a couple of groups. During the pandemic, we all got involved, things online. I got involved with a couple of senior traveling groups, women who travel solo. And so I know we have different friends, and I have Facebook friends, and I have friends in special groups that I've maintained contact with over the last 4 years or so. And one of the ladies that I know very well from one of the traveling groups just completed this exact same tour that I did in the last 2 weeks, because she had asked me about it a long time ago. And I told her, I said, you should definitely do it, because she travels even more than I do. You think I travel. You should see the way some of these women travel that are in this group, but she travels even more. But she did it. And so I asked her if she post pictures at least 1 or 2 every day. And she was really gracious about it. She posted pictures every day. And so I relived the trip, because it's the exact same trip from the point at which she landed at the airport in Egypt until she left. Each hotel, she even did pictures of the hotel rooms, because they have these amazing hotels in Egypt. They're old English hotels. But anyway, and pictures on the Aida, and I was like, oh my God, I wish I was there. I wish I was there. And of course, pictures of the temples and the tombs, Camaj, all that stuff. She posted pictures of it every day. And so that made me relive it. But I resisted writing about it. I'm not going to write about Egypt. I said, but I really enjoyed approaching today, knowing that I was going to be reading it and talking about it with you today. I thought that was pretty cool. I actually got to relive the whole experience the last 2 weeks through her pictures.
Where can people purchase from Egypt?
And they can purchase it at innerchildpress.com. So they just go to Inner Child Press. Inner, INERCHILD Press, PRESS. And I'm saying this out loud because people won't see the chat later when they look at it. But if they go to innerchildpress.com and then they go to authors and put in my name, then my books will come up, Inner Child Press. They can also go, that's through my publisher. And if they don't want to do that, they can also go to Amazon and just plug in my name, Teresa E. Gallion, and all of my books will come up.
Teresa, where do you go from here? What's next for you creatively?
Before I got sidetracked into writing this book on Egypt, I was already working on another book, which is here's a book that's supposed to be my major work, okay? I've been working on this book for several years. I got sidetracked away from it once before with the pandemic and writing Sin of Love, and then I got sidetracked away from it writing Come Egypt. But I'm back to that now. I'm writing back to that book again. I have quite a few pieces, but I'm being even more strict with what I want to end up putting in the book. And I'm not happy with enough pieces. I have enough pieces that I could literally produce a book right now, okay? But I don't have enough pieces that I'm happy with, because this book the working title is The Far Country, which is a totally spiritual unfolding and evolution of my life, okay? So it's a major book. For me, it would be major. And I don't know how long it's going to take me to complete it, because I'm doing more and more editing and more serious editing of pieces, and they're turning it in more pieces. And I'm not doing it every day. Again, I'm retired, so it's when the spirit moves me. That's why I need to get to traveling again, because I probably will end up writing a little more if I would travel again, because that's the type of thing I write when I'm traveling, sitting by rivers, because it's when I do my morning meditation and stuff. That's when I end up writing my spiritual stuff. That's where I'm back to now. And I'm hoping not to get distracted off into another book, and that eventually, before I translate, I would like to get this book out. And if I never got another one out after that, I would be okay. But for me, I want to get this book out to the world. And it's not going to be for everybody because it's going to be at a very high spiritual level. I would like to bring it into my spiritual community. But I might want to introduce a little bit of it to my youngins.
Teresa, I would like to thank you for joining me. Your work is exquisite. The imagery is beyond exceptional. The words are simply sublime. And I wish you nothing but continued success.
Thank you so much, my dear. What a blessing to know you. And I am so glad and I am truly honored that I was able to spend this time with you.
Still craving poetry? Hundreds of episodes of the Quintessential Listening, Poetry Online Radio and YouTube podcast are available to listen to or download on iTunes, Spotify, and other streaming platforms. To learn more about the popular podcast or how to become a guest, visit www.QLPORYT.com. Till next time, take care and let poetry ring somewhere throughout the land.